which is pretty much what Rush did.
Mm-hmm.
They developed an audience, and I think the first, not necessarily a top 40 hit, but an FM hit was Tom Sawyer.
Yeah.
The first,
I like that
yeah,
song.
yeah, that
Yeah.
that was kind of like the one that the girls liked and the guys liked.
Yeah.
Because before that, it was more like a guys band.
Right.
I mean, how many girls do you go on a date with, and she pops in King Crimson? No.
Right.
Even though my wife loves Bebop Deluxe.
Okay.
Oh yeah, we sit around, we listen to Yes, or Rush. She's a bigger Rush fan than I am.
Okay. Welcome to episode 139 of the Bass Shed Podcast. My name is Ryan Roberts. All right, folks. So I started a new segment on the podcast last episode. The segment is I call out 5 bass players' names to the guest, and the guest then hopefully will give me the first 2 words that come to mind when they think about this bass player. Now, I don't know who the bass player I mentioned could be friends of theirs. I don't know that. I try to pick bass players that are kind of in their wheelhouse, in the wheelhouse of the guest. So somebody, that they're aware of and might have, some thoughts on. I just want to hear the first 2 things that come to mind. So that's the segment. I did it here on this episode with Rudy, and it was great to hear Rudy's thoughts on it. But what I'm asking, folks, is I can't come up with the name of the segment, right? I've been trying to think through some ideas, like what should I call this? Since I'm picking 5 bass players, the first thing that came to my mind was Take 5. Now, I don't want to do that. One, there's no relation to the jazz standard at all. 2, it kind of fits the little game, but there might be something better. So I'm opening up. I thought it'd be cool to open it up to what the listeners think. Let me know in the comments below here on YouTube what you think the name of that segment should be. The segment is at the end of the interview, so please make sure to check that out. Definitely to hear Rudy's thoughts on the 5 bass players I quizzed him on. I don't know, quiz isn't the right word, but the 5 bass players I called out, and Rudy had thoughts on all of them. But I'm still trying to name this segment. So in the comments below here on YouTube, hit me up with what you think the name of the segment should be. All right, I'm going to continue talking about the book I did with the bass legend Jerry Jamont. It's right here, folks. 15 Timeless Bass Lines, Jerry Jamont. This book, if you're watching this on YouTube, then you're seeing me flip through this book. If you're just listening to the audio version of this podcast, you're not seeing me flip through the book, obviously. But it's all here. There's 122 pages, I believe, 24 pages, 122 pages. That page is not a transcription, and then there's some in the beginning that are not transcriptions. But there are 15 transcriptions here in the book. Click the link in the description below to get your copy. With the book comes videos of Jerry talking about each tune. Jerry gives a behind the scenes look at kind of what was happening at the sessions, what influenced the music, what influenced his bass line specifically, gear he was playing. I'll tell you right now what gear he was playing. This is he always played the house Ampeg. It was at the studio. That's the amp he played. He'll talk about the different basses he played and maybe strings that were on it, which I can tell you that right now, they're flat wounds. But you can hear that. I don't think I needed to mention that they were flat wounds. But you can learn more about the recording sessions from Jerry himself, and also you can learn the bass lines with the transcriptions that are here in standard notation and tab. Again, Jerry Jamont, 15 Timeless Bass Lines. Stop by thebassshedacademy.org to pick up your copy. LemurMusic.com. Yes, LemurMusic.com. Everything you need for the double bass can be found at LemurMusic.com. Stop by the website, check out their inventory of basses, bows, sheet music, rosin, etc. etc. What was that movie? What was that like M. Night Shyamalan movie where the guest kept saying etc. and it was hilarious. It was a really dark. It wasn't that dark of a movie. It was kind of a dark movie. Man, what was the name of that? It's the guy that worked at the zoo. You know what I mean? Now he kept saying etc. So every time I hear the word etc., I think of that guy in that movie. Anyways, so stop by lemurmusic.com, shop their inventory of double bass accessories, electric bass accessories, etc. Man, I'm gonna have to remember the name of that movie. Anyways, lemurmusic.com. Use the promo code TheBassShed, all one word, for 10% off. On the episode is hard rock and heavy metal bassist Rudy Sarzo. Rudy has played with the top acts of the genre. He has played with Ozzy Osbourne, Quiet Riot, WhiteSnake, Blue Oyster Cult, so many others. Rudy is originally from Havana, Cuba, and he'll talk about the move to the States. He'll talk about his move within the States. He'll talk about some of his first gigs playing top 40. And Rudy, we talk about music, but we talk about a personal journey. And Rudy was very, I didn't even have to take the conversation there. Like, Rudy just went for it. It was great. It was great. Such a great time talking with Rudy. To really describe the journey and how he was framing all of the information about his life and about his career was very much a story. And he started us early on, and then we were evolving and hitting these major points within his life that were really that were game changers. That were game changers for him, and how that impacted his career. It was an amazing interview. Check the link in the show notes here for more information on Rudy. I had a great time talking to him, and Rudy and I are going to be. He's going to be back on the show. Because of time constraints, I didn't get to all this stuff I wanted to talk to Rudy about. One of those being the nature of rock music today, right? But I'm curious to hear what Rudy's thoughts about modern rock are, and he'll be back on the show, hopefully very soon. He does have some tour dates coming up with Quiet Riot, so maybe we can hop on another chat when he gets back from some tour days, or if it works out that we can record the interview before, that would be fantastic too, because I'm very anxious to hear what he has to say about the nature of rock music in present day. This was a fantastic time, and this was the interview that I would hope to hear if I was clicking on an interview with Rudy Sarzo. Like, this is, he automatically took it to a place that I thought was very fascinating, very engaging, very open, very personal, and it was a fantastic time. And here it is. Here's my talk with hard rock and metal bassist Rudy Sarzo.
How you doing?
I'm doing well, man. I'm doing well. How you doing?
All right. It's a little wet here in Los Angeles, and we welcome the rain.
Yeah. I think so, man. I didn't know. We met in NAMM, but I didn't know where you actually live. So you're in LA. And what do you think about the weather?
I'm in LA.
You digging this? You digging the rain?
Well, the rain, it's seasonal. It all depends which month it happens, but usually it does happen before spring,
right?
And in summertime. Of course, summer we get nothing.
Yeah.
One thing people don't take into consideration then, especially the valley, San Fernando Valley, which is I live up in Mulholland, but I face the valley. I'm on the valley side, up the hill. It's a desert.
Right.
It's a desert, so it's just like any desert. You don't get a whole lot of rain,
right? No, I'm originally from Phoenix, which obviously desert, and so I love it. I love it every time it rains. I bring it on. I'm over it. Like, that being said, I have no interest in ever going to Palm Springs, and going to like those desert cities out east. So I'm over it. I'm over the desert.
I lived there for a while. I lived in the Indian Wells.
Okay.
Which is right next to Palm Desert, a little bit further than Palm Springs. And I know what you mean.
Yeah. Man, so since we did meet at NAMM, did you see anything at NAMM that excited you or interested you while you were there?
Yeah, I did. I actually went to NAMM 2025 with no agenda. I just wanted to say hello to, the brands that I work with and that support me and so on. And I happened to be walking by this booth, and I heard a sound, a tone. And I'm going, well, okay. That's because you walk by different booths and guitar,
Yeah.
bass. Let's say somebody's playing bass, and sometimes it's kind of like the same tone,
Yeah, yeah. Right.
And then I walk by this one and go like, that sounds different. That sounds like something that resonated with me. And it happened to be Brubaker,
Okay.
the Brubaker bass. There were some gentlemen that were playing, and they were doing more R&B and slapping, but it had that more of that organic traditional tone to it, rather than the super amped up
Right.
preamp
Right. Super
tone up.
hi-fi, active sounds.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, which I do have basses like that. But see, that's the point. I already have basses like that. What really captivated me is the fact that uh, I'm back with playing with Quiet Riot. And even though I grew up doing slapping and all of that back in the 70s, because, from like 69 to, yeah, when I moved to LA in 78 to join Quiet Riot, for almost 10 years, I was basically playing covers in top 40. So you ran the gamut of Flying the Family Stone to Paul Anka's You Having My Baby.
Yeah.
Whatever's on the
Right.
radio, you play that. And so, I grew up playing slap, not the type of slap that it's common now, which is more of the Olympic style of slapping, double
Well
slapping, triple
said.
slapping.
Yeah. Well said.
Yeah.
Olympic style. I like that. Yeah.
Yeah, but it is what it is. Of course, you take a trend and people keep moving it forward. They keep, it's just like the Olympics.
Sure.
The
You always got to beat the next world record. That's what's going on.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly, and that's what it is. With techniques.
Sure.
I'm talking about techniques. And so I happened to, and then I went to the booth and I asked for a passive bass, which is it's really interesting about passive basses for me. Is like, let's, I got my first night at 67 Jazz in 1967.
Yeah.
I was 17 and I was playing. I'm Cuban, so I come from my culture. The dance, the parties were quinceañeras, and I did a lot of those. As a matter of fact, in our circuit, we had Will Lee. I'm from Miami, so Will Lee, he was raised there.
Right.
His dad was the dean of music at the University of Miami.
Okay.
So he was like one of those very rare, well-schooled quinceañera musicians.
Yeah.
The rest of us, we were just picking it up by listening to the record. Whereas Will, he was educated, and then of course our local hero was Jacko.
Sure.
I could go to, let's say, the Newport Lounge and watch him play with Wayne Cochran.
Right.
For a couple of drinks, you sat there all night long, just getting a bass lesson.
Right.
So musically, I was brought up in a very open-minded. Miami being a tourist area, you had to like really dive into the top 40, because that was a reflection of what the tourists wanted to hear.
Right.
And a lot of the top 40 and R&B was very danceable. So you're playing in clubs, you keep them dancing, and they keep buying drinks.
Right. Yeah, the whole thing is aimed at selling alcohol, right? Yeah.
Exactly. But you learn how to please the crowd and to please the promoter. It's being a musician to me is being in a service.
Yeah.
You're providing a service. You're serving somebody. You're serving, traditionally musicians value to serve a higher power.
Yeah.
I call it God. The tribal meeting, playing the drum circle or then chanting, and then it expanding to different instruments. And me being Cuban, I grew up with Afro-Cuban music. And as a matter of fact, I was born in Cuba, and that's all we had. I'm 74, so I started listening to music before rock and roll existed. So what we had in Cuba was a big band era, kind of like let's say Glenn Miller or Count Basie, but Latin versions of that.
Sure.
There will always be like a great lead singer, band leader, like let's say Benny Moré, or Celia Cruz, music like that. And then by 61, we moved to the United States, as Cuban refugees. And that's what I consider the dark pop period in America, because it was pre-British invasion, and the pillars of rock and roll were barely played on the radio, if at all, because Little Richard became a minister. Chuck Berry got arrested uh, for bringing an underage girl across state lines.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and Jerry Lee Lewis got involved for marrying his cousin.
Right.
Elvis was in the military. So, rock and roll became what the radio was playing by the time that I got to in 1961 to United States were mainly the Platters. The heaviest you could get were the Four Seasons.
Okay.
The most rocket,
Yeah.
which is pretty good. I love the Four Seasons.
Sure.
They got the harmonies, they got great players, great songs. It's cool. That Jersey Boys.
Right.
But it wasn't necessarily what was to come later. And by night, so my dad, he took advantage of the Columbia House. Back in the 60s, you could get like 20 records for a penny.
Ooh.
You never heard of the Columbia House?
No.
Oh, it was really interesting. Yeah. It was a clearance house for LPs.
Okay.
On the Columbia label. And they would give you like little cards. Let's say you buy a magazine and a little card came in and you fill it out. And then, you choose what artist. And they were mainly, my dad really liked Mantovani.
Mm-hmm.
And the 1,000 strings. I'm talking about the 60s.
Yeah.
60s stuff. And me, I picked more of the big bands like Glenn Miller. In Glenn Miller, I got the whole collection of Glenn Miller and stuff like that. So that was like my next connection closest to Afro-Cuban big bands.
Right.
Glenn Miller, which was a whole harmonic structure to what they were composing and playing and the way that the orchestra sounded, But one thing that I found that was really interesting was in the Latin bands, we did not have a drum kit. We had a percussion section.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas in the American jazz swing band, there was, of course, a drummer.
Right.
And sometimes he was at the forefront of it, with his beat because they wanted the kids to dance.
Yeah.
All those bands, Glenn Miller and Benny Goodman, all that was all about getting the kids to dance on the dance floor.
Yeah, then you had big bands like Chick Webb, who was the drummer and the band leader. Like really the big drum solos, obviously sing, things like that. Like the drums were and that percussive element was a driving force of all that.
Absolutely. And, that was a big time for the jitterbug.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, jitterbug was like the dance praise of the day, and it was very competitive. So, it was not just about how great the band was, it was also about how great the dancers that competed were, so that people would come and, experience that. And so by 63, we moved to New Jersey. We got relocated from Miami to West New York, New Jersey. And that was 63. And there was a series of events that really shaped my life, completely. Kennedy getting shot in 1963 in November, right before Thanksgiving. Because, being as a Cuban refugee, we did not count on moving to the United States permanently. We left in between Bay of Pigs and the missile crisis. Mm-hmm. There was a lot of conflict and tension going on. And of course, we were living under communism. And it took my parents about a year and a half to get a sponsor, somebody to claim us from the United States, get the visas, get the passports, get the tickets, get everything ready to travel to the United States. So that took about a year and a half. So we left in 1961. And so Kennedy got shot, but Kennedy was our only hope.
I was going to ask you about that. When Kennedy was assassinated, for Cubans who were in America, Was that just like completely defeating? Like, that was our ticket out.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's what happened to us. So, here I am in West New York, New Jersey, and, of course, everybody's grieving a mourning. But me, it was a beyond grieving a mourning. It was like the loss of the president, the loss of the only person that was really standing up for us, who could, hopefully, you know, get rid of communism
Mm-hmm.
in Cuba, and actually having Russia as a threat, being 90 miles away with the nuclear missiles, from the United States.
Right.
And so he gets shot, and it's okay. So, we're dealing with this. So, Christmas, Thanksgiving happened right before Thanksgiving. Then
Yeah.
you got Christmas. Then you got New Year's Eve, and it's like doom and gloom. I mean, it's like you cannot even see the light at the end of the tunnel, especially for the kids. We just did not know how to deal with this. So I got already the PTSD from having left my country and just like leave everything behind. And then you have to adapt to not only a new culture, a new language, a new way of life, but now there's no turning back. And it's like, whoa.
Yeah, let's talk about that. When coming here, so you were 11 when you landed in, correct?
I was 10.
You were 10.
I was 10. Yeah, I was about 3 months away from 11.
Okay. When you got to Florida, what was that like at 10 years old, understanding a completely different culture? How did if you can recall, like what kind of imprint, was that? How did it feel when you landed at 10? What was kind of going on with you? And then how do you think that played out the rest of your life? I don't want to say the rest of your life as if you passed, but how did that play on into later years of your life?
Yeah, it wasn't layers because the rest of my life was affected through a timeline.
Mm-hmm.
It was not like there wasn't one big bang.
Yeah, yeah.
That's where
Okay.
we're getting towards that.
Okay. Great. Hey, you got a better outline for this interview than I do. This is fantastic.
Yeah. I mean, it's a story that I live with, and and that I share my experiences with people because when I speak about certain subjects, I'm speaking from experience.
Sure.
And even though I have experienced things in my life, I do not expect everybody to even be able to grasp a small percentage of it.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's, how could you? How could anybody do that? So I am very open to actually sharing my experience, but not expecting to change anybody's mind with it.
Sure.
People have the free will to have their own belief system, which is mainly due to a lot of programming. My programming is based on experience.
Mm-hmm.
Other people's programming is based on information handed on by their parents, being raised a certain way, and also the media, school.
Yeah. Some
certain
kind of like
teachers
cultural or community leadership or a thing of authority, whether it be a school or a church or media or something. I think a lot of people just absorb information and then parrot the information.
Yes. Until I believe that you get to a certain age where you start entering the self-realization stage of your life. If you remain open enough spiritually, bring it in deep inside to who you are as a human being, that connection with a greater power. I call it God, but then again, I'm old-fashioned, Some people call it the universe.
Sure.
They'll give it some go,
Yeah.
By any other name, it is what it is. The higher power, the highest power, and so anything that I might be sharing with you during our conversation is just based on that. And one thing that I wanted to repeat: I don't expect, or even I'm not even telling you this to change anybody's mind. I'm just adding my own perception from being this pixel in this galaxy that has gone through this. That's all.
Yeah. Yeah. So, where did we leave off? I think before I interrupted you, you guys then moved from Florida up to New York. You guys are
Yeah,
in New
West New
York,
York. It's New Jersey
New
actually.
Jersey, and this
West New
is
York. Yeah.
so you're dealing with the Kennedy assassination. So we get through Thanksgiving. That happened on November 22nd. We get through Thanksgiving that year, Christmas that year, New Year's Eve. Now we're in 1964. That's where we left off in the story. 1964,
Yeah.
moving forward.
Okay, moving forward, February 9th, 1964.
Hmm.
That it changed everything.
Okay, February 9th.
Yeah, February. Yeah, Beatles and Ed Sullivan,
Aha.
and it's almost like you change, but you. My only way that I could pinpoint it was okay. Here I am. Uh, I've been in the country for about almost 2.5 years now, barely. And I have very little command of the language. And I was fat from eating. Have you heard of the government cheese? It's not a myth.
Okay.
Yeah, when we first arrived in Miami, they started assisting us uh, through giving us army surplus food.
Okay.
Yeah, so my mom used to go to this place, which kind of looks like Costco, actually.
Okay.
Every time I go to Costco, I get this fuzzy
Was the
feeling
parking
about it.
just as bad as it is at
Yeah.
Costco?
Well, we didn't park. We didn't have a car,
Right,
so
right.
we walked like a couple of miles to get to it in downtown Miami, and you go to this place, and they'll come out and give you a box already filled with army rations.
Okay.
Spam, which we
Right.
named refugee meat,
Yeah.
carne del refugio, and it stunk. It stunk. I mean, it was awful. Government cheese, powdered eggs, powdered milk, peanut butter, and a couple of other things that put on about 50 pounds. And
How long?
when you're
How long would
ready,
that box last? Like, how much? How was that a week's worth? What is it? Like 10 days worth? 2 weeks worth?
well, that's an interesting question. Happened already come from Cuba. By the time the revolution came in, we were on rations.
Mm-hmm.
We were being rationed, and we had like a little book that you could only buy beans or rice or whatever, certain times of the month and
Right.
certain amount, things like that. So my mom and my family became used to really preserving food, not
Yeah.
wasting anything. Plus, if you did not like something, like say we were not big into peanut butter, you were barter that with your neighbor in the
Okay.
building because they
Right.
might like peanut butter but not the cheese.
Yeah.
So it's the bartering system. So we got by on that, but there were so many chemicals
Yeah.
in the food, so many preservatives that and when my family, all of a sudden, my dad, came from a working class. He was part of the union in Cuba, printers union, because that was his trade. Then all of a sudden he cannot work with on his usual trade because he could not proofread in English anything that was being printed.
Mm.
So he could not do that. All of a sudden, it was kind of like the reason why we got relocated was so my mom and dad could both get better jobs in New Jersey.
I see. I was going to ask about the move. Okay.
Yeah, that was the reason.
What was
So,
it like going adapting to the school systems for you and your brother, who's also a musician?
yeah,
What was it like adapting to the school systems, not understanding and you're thrown in, not understanding the language, and then you're thrown
yeah.
into 10 years old is what, maybe third, fourth grade?
Oh no, I was already in fifth, sixth grade.
Fifth,
Yeah,
okay,
for
fifth,
me.
sixth grade.
Yeah,
But I mean,
yeah,
they're probably testing on reading literacy at this point and stuff, and you're just dropped into the middle of this culture where you don't speak the language, and
yeah.
that's a lot.
It is a lot, and I'll give you some examples. When we were in Miami, there were a few Cubans there already.
Hmm.
So not as many as there is right now, but they were kind of like the beginning of the colonizing Miami,
Yeah.
with more of a Latin flavor, the Southwest, that area. So, there were maybe, let's say, half of the kids in my school were Cubans,
Okay.
or maybe a little bit less. But there were enough that I could, like, relate to them,
Right.
socialize with them in my own language. And by the time that I got to Jersey, it was the first time that I actually experienced segregation, cultural segregation, not even racial segregation. It's like the Italians will hang out
Sure.
together and the Irish. I'm talking about 1963,
Yeah.
a long time ago. Okay, so each block had kind of like an ethnic,
Yeah, yeah. Where that culture
ethnicity.
would group together. You got, like you mentioned,
Exactly.
the Irish or the African Americans or the
Yeah.
the Jewish
Yeah.
people here. Yeah.
Exactly. And that reflected the same thing in school.
Hmm.
So in school now, it's like the same thing. Nobody wants to hang out with me. There were not that many Cubans or Latinos. Most of the Latinos at the time lived in the Bronx
Yeah.
in New York. They hadn't really gone to Jersey yet, like they do now. So what happened with the Beatles was, like, the next day after that happened on Ed Sullivan. When I say that, because it's so hard to explain, there's a documentary on Apple TV called 64. It's the Maisley brothers. They 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 were given access to the Beatles in the hotel room backstage. They traveled with them. It was a 24
Right.
hour
Just documenting the whole.
everything,
Yeah.
everything, and it's on, and it's amazing to actually
Okay.
witness it. And then at the same time, they had people, let's say like David Lynch, the director, speaking about the effect that the Beatles performing on Ed Sullivan had on him. And just like all these, really successful people, I mean, like writers and artists, that said that was the defining moment in their lives, not only for personally, but culturally.
You
So,
watched it live. You watched them
oh
live
yeah,
on Ed Sullivan.
yeah.
What was the
There,
mood?
there
What
was
was the mood when you're watching them and you're captivated by what this is, and what was the mood among you and your family,
Yeah,
whoever else was in the room?
yeah. I don't know, but I tend to believe that they follow some really mainstream act. It was a variety show,
Yeah, yeah.
and there was only like three choices, three
Three
networks:
stations, right?
ABC, yeah, ABC,
Yeah,
CBS,
NBC,
and
CB,
NBC.
ABC.
Yeah, Fox did not even exist.
Right, yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
right.
yeah, just three. So Ed Sullivan was like you can't go wrong. You're always going to find something.
Sure.
It's going to be Tupper Jinjo comes on, or poodles dancing through hoops of fire,
Right.
or some comedian that I did not understand what he said,
Sure.
like Bob Newhart. I
Yeah.
didn't get it. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah.
You know,
Right.
you know. So we're sitting there, and I had heard on the radio they were getting some airplay, and there was some kind of like buzz about the Beatles going on, but it had nothing to do with me. It wasn't like I was tuning in especially to see the Beatles,
Yeah,
to
yeah.
watch that. It was like, this is what we do every Sunday. So I'm sitting there with my little brother looking at him as we're, the band is playing, because we already had a guitar in our family. One
Okay.
guitar that my parents ordered during that Christmas, from Spiegel catalog. And it was a zebra striped, old Craftsman. I actually recently saw one at a Cracker Barrel, hanging on the wall. I had to take a picture of it because it was exactly the same guitar that
That's
I had.
hilarious.
Yeah. So so uh, so the Beatles are playing, and we're looking at each other and going, "Wow, they got guitars and they sound cool." But when the camera panned to the girls going crazy,
Yeah.
that was like, you mean you can make him go crazy with a
Yeah,
guitar?
yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
I'm sticking with it. This is it.
Right, that's all it takes is a guitar. Yeah.
That's right. I mean, oh, wow, because I was invisible. First of all, I from a foreign country, didn't speak the language. I was overweight, and to be overweight in the '60s, it was like, you're doomed.
Mhm.
Now I could be a rapper.
Yeah.
I mean, how many celebrities are really overweight in comparison to the weight that the people were back in the '60s
Sure,
and
sure, yeah.
'50s? I would say most of them,
Yeah.
actually.
Right.
So
They're
that was
all
a
they're all
different
eating the
standard.
government cheese. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, basically that's okay. I like
Yeah.
that. So the next day I go to school and I decided to comb my hair down just because I thought, well, if the girls are screaming for these guys and they got hair combed
Yeah.
down, they got bangs. I'm gonna do the same thing. That's
Yeah,
my
you might
first
not have
step.
been the only one with the idea. Did you show up to school on February 10th and all the males had their hair combed
They all
down?
did. They all did. And we would point it at each other. Then all of a sudden, well, what? You like the Beatles? Oh, you like rock?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, do you have a guitar at home? Yeah, I got a guitar. Well, let's now get
Yeah,
together.
yeah.
And that broke down all the barriers.
Mm-hmm.
All of a sudden, we were all hanging out together. I mean, I use the word jamming
Yeah.
loosely because they were trying to like, oh, what's an eight chord?
Yeah,
What is
yeah,
this
yeah, right.
chord here?
You're trying to figure out the instrument and then create something with peers.
Yeah,
Right.
I mean, that's what this is way before Rick Beato on YouTube.
Rick would
Figure
have made
this
a
out.
killing back then. Rick would have made him killing it. If he was on after Sullivan, he would have made a
My
killing.
God, yeah, Rick and Scott Divine.
Right.
I love those guys. Yeah, because I've been watching them like from day one.
Mm,
When they first came up, before they started getting the awards.
sure.
The YouTube awards and all that. And
Are there
so,
YouTube awards?
so,
I didn't even know about this. So there's YouTube awards?
yeah, you get like a little plaque with like a plate.
Oh,
It's
like your
got the
play counts or
icons for
something?
play.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
and then yeah.
Yeah.
And that was it. That was it. And that was the big bang. That would say that was the most significant event that happened in my life to get me on this path that I've been on since 1964.
Now, in I think people, including you're included in this, people that do what they do and they do their craft and they do their artistry at a high level, they have a lot of twists and turns to get there, But they were going to get there some way, somehow. Like it was going to be something. They were still going to end up there. And so if it weren't the Beatles, let's say, I'm sure that there would have been another defining moment because I do think that it's in you and it just needs like a spark to be released.
Yes, but what the Beatles did is define the collective consciousness globally.
Yeah, but that's true.
They had global impact, not only in music, but fashion.
Yeah.
It happened not organically that one guy was the activist, let's say John Lennon.
Yeah.
Then you got Paul McCartney, the hopeless romantic.
Right.
Everything's going to be okay, Then you got the spiritual side, which is George Harrison.
Mm-hmm.
And then you got the everyday man,
right?
Ringo.
Right.
Who's
your favorite? If you had to pick the Beatle you identify with the most, who?
Ooh, George.
Yeah, okay. I like his writing the best. He would be my favorite because of his writing. I love his writing.
Yeah, and I am a late bloomer.
Yeah.
Like him. Yeah, because he did not bloom really as an artist because he was confined to 2 songs per Beatle record. And then he had all this material written already, when the Beatles disbanded and he went in with Phil Spector to make that record. Going like, oh my God!
Yeah.
I mean, this could have been Beatles songs.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Okay, so let's keep going on this journey here. We got. You get to school February 10th. You got your hair down. You're starting to play. You're starting to. Yeah.
I still do.
Yeah. You're getting together with buddies, and music has now made this huge impact on your life, and this kind of like you realize where you want to head. It's kind of maybe gives you a sense of direction. Would you say that too?
Yeah, it became, I was raised Catholic. I am a Christian. So it was, to me, spirituality, religion, it's a given.
Mm-hmm.
But I knew that in life, I had to find a purpose.
Mhm.
To me, I see two different things: a belief and a purpose. A
Sure.
purpose, you have to take action
That's
to in
right.
order to why am I here?
Hmm.
How can I serve?
Hmm.
How can I be of service? And to me, musicians, this is what we do. We serve.
Yeah.
We by creating music, or let's say, somebody. Okay, let's say, for example, somebody has, and I'm talking traditionally, the old days when you have a party, you're gonna have a DJ, you had a band. You show up there, whether it's a wedding or birthday or whatever occasion, you're providing a service,
Yeah.
right? You write a song, that song will service a human, one person, for a lifetime, because that would be the time capsule. The first time you heard
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
song or shared it
That's
with
right.
somebody, that will mean something.
Yeah. And
So
on that specific topic right there, I've talked about this a lot, maybe on the podcast. I know I've talked about it with friends. It's that music has a power that other artistic aesthetics don't. Because you hear a song and it takes you right there. It takes you back to the first time you heard it, and all of a sudden you're a teenager and you're in your friend's backyard or wherever it might be, and you can picture it, you can smell it. It takes you right back there. Whereas, like, you watch a movie again, it doesn't take you back to the first time you saw the movie, or it doesn't.
Absolutely.
There's something. There's a power in music that is so. It hits on a human level, really, really deep.
Yeah.
It's
It's
powerful.
I think it's got the most powerful resonance quality of all the frequential arts, whether it's painting, colors have frequencies, words have frequency, of course, music, combination of words and sounds of instruments. It's like, for example, you could be in a room surrounded by paintings, and if a song comes on, you as we as musicians, we gravitate towards that.
Right.
I'll be having a conversation with my wife, and the song comes on, and it's like,
Yeah. I know.
It's like that
And you're still
Seinfeld.
listening. You're still listening to the conversation, but you're also like, oh, here comes the chorus. Here comes the chorus.
Yeah. It comes to bass line.
Yeah. I love this part. I love this part. Yeah,
exactly. It's just like that, because it's just like it puts you in a mood and a place and a time. It's almost like time stops still.
Yeah.
And that's what we do when we play music. It's like, we can do it a 1.5 hour show, and it goes by so fast.
Yeah.
That by the time you get on the stage, you go, oh my God, I was just getting started.
Yeah, I know.
We're just warming up.
Yeah. You're like, now I'm warmed up. Now let's play.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Which became an issue back in the 80s when bands, that I were in.
Sure.
It's like, how do you turn off what you just did on stage? You go. Sometimes we would go directly into the tour bus.
Yeah.
And leave before the parking lot got crowded and the bottleneck were trying to get out of the parking lot. So while people are still in the venue hoping for a third encore,
we're
in the bus.
You're done.
You're on the freeway already,
Right.
And so so let's say you had a great gig, and how do you turn that off? I've learned how to do that now, but 40 years ago, I had no idea.
We'll be back right after this.
Folks, I've been talking about it for a while. The middle of the show is for you. Get featured on the Bass Shed podcast right here in the middle of the show. For anyone that is unaware, as far as ad spaces go, I'm going to give you a little inside information. This is the prime real estate of any podcast, is the middle of the show, right? And now I know what you're thinking right now, like, why are you using this prime real estate to annoy me, Ryan? Get back to the interview. I got you. I hear you talking. All right. I keep annoying you because I'm opening up it for you. This is where your news should be. Hit me up. Support the show that supports you. That's what's going on here. I'm trying to build community. With this. Get featured on the Bass Shed podcast. Share your news if you got a new single out, if you have a new online lessons program out, if you have whatever it is you're up to that you would like to share. If you're trying to sell a bass, right? Like, hey, I'm trying to get rid of this. Go buy Reverb and check it out. Read more about it. Let me know and get the word out. Get the word out to all the listeners here on the Bass Shed podcast. Get featured on the Bass Shed podcast. Click the link in the show notes below. All right, if you're enjoying the interview with Rudy Sarzo, please take a second to like the Bass Shed here on YouTube and subscribe to the channel. Hit the little bell and get notified about new podcast episodes that come out each week.
Excellent, sir.
What's fascinating is I've talked, me and this is years ago, I did this, me and the drummer were leaving this gig, and there was like, I forgot what happened, like the club closed early or something, we didn't finish the whole gig, and so there was a sense of restlessness, you know, we're like, well, man, let's go get a bite or something because we're restless. And I started laughing, I'm like, man, you know what's funny about musicians is because you either leave a gig feeling restless because the gig didn't go well, and now you're like, like that itch didn't get scratched, or the gig was crushing and you're amped up and now you're restless. Like, either way, you're going to leave a gig from one perspective or the other, like still having all this energy, and knowing what to do with that is could lead to toxic habits, or, you know, maybe you end up just going to diners every night after a gig and, you know, doing another patty melt or something. But yeah, it's hard to come down from that rush. How did you navigate that? Because you're playing with the biggest rock bands during the decades of when rock bands hit a whole new peak. Like, yeah. I mean, that's the bands you were in, and that era of rock music hit a peak before the grunge thing happened. That you know, and I do want to talk to you about the nature of rock music today, but that was, I mean, when people talk about partying like a rock star, you were a part of it. You were one of those rock stars. How do you come down from that much?
Okay. Right before I'll take,
I like your response. It was funny. Yeah, no.
I mean, because we're going into a whole different area now.
Yeah.
Okay. So right before I joined Ozzy, I had my spiritual, my epiphany. Mm-hmm. I made peace with God. I was sleeping on the floor, Kevin DuBro's apartment. Kevin DuBro is a singer in Quiet Riot. Mm-hmm. But at that time, Quiet Riot did not exist, because when Randy left in 1979, the band, Kevin put his own band called DuBro. Mm-hmm. And about 8 months before I joined Ozzy, I moved in with Kevin in his spare bedroom, and I started playing with DuBro, but I was sleeping on the floor. Thank God for shag carpeting.
I know. Just to try to connect this with the part of the interview. Yeah. Where are you now? Are you in LA doing this, or are you still in Jersey?
I'm in LA.
Okay, so LA. Now we're in LA, and you're sleeping on the floor.
LA broke. You know, I mean, if it wasn't, if I had a car, I would have been sleeping in the car. That's how broke I was.
I've used that same line before. Yeah, I've been there.
Well, it's true. Yeah, it's true.
I know.
And
like, man, if I only had a car to be homeless in, that would be amazing. I would love that. Yeah.
Exactly. And so I started reading the Bible and getting my spiritual center. And when I finished reading both the Old Testament, New Testament, and I'm laying on, I'm there in that moment, and I made peace with God. I said, you know what? If I never make it as a musician, that's okay. As long as my fingers keep moving, I'm going to keep playing. That's the sign to keep going,
Okay.
But if I never make it, my relationship with God is more important than anything else. And I gave up control, mental control. Sure. You know what I mean? You're like, sometimes you're like, you got so many plans, or well, if this doesn't happen, then I'm done, or that's it. All of the above. And it became more like, it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
Complete peace, everything. It was like joy, peace. No, sleeping on the floor, that's okay. Get up in the morning, be grateful that I'm alive. One more day, and then I get the phone call a few days later to audition for Ozzy. I actually turned it down the first time.
Based on what?
Yeah.
What was the element of being an Ozzy
Turning it
fan?
down.
Was it?
Well, I mean, I turned it down because the phone call happened all of a sudden. I pick up the phone. Kevin gives it to me and says, "Hey, Rudy, somebody calling for you." I pick up the phone, and Sharon, who was at the time just managing Ozzy. They were not married or anything. And she goes, "Hi, I'm Sharon, and I manage Ozzy. And Randy told me about you, and how would you like, to come? We want you to come down to audition." And I said, "Oh no, thank you. I'm already playing in this other band called Angel. The guys that used to dress in white.
Yeah.
I was in that band but there was no record deal, so
Okay.
I was just." They were trying to, they got dropped by Casablanca right before I joined the band. So Sharon hangs out with me, and Kevin goes, "Who was that?" I go, "Oh, it was Ozzy's manager, and they asked me if I wanted to audition, but I turned it down because." And then he starts yelling at me, and I came to my senses, and it was. And I thought, well, if this ever happened again, I'll know better than to.
Now, what's interesting
And-
is coming to peace and making coming to peace with God, and you had this
Yeah.
this kind of mental release where you're just like, okay, it's out of my hands, it's out of my control. Your knee-jerk reaction wasn't to perceive this call from Sharon as like, oh my gosh, this is a blessing, or this is divine intervention, or it wasn't. That never crossed the radar.
Yes, because I thought that the band that I was supposed to be in was Angel, the band.
Yeah.
And then Kevin just put some sense into me, and he said, first of all, you could have been playing with Randy again. Second of all, you're sleeping on the floor.
Yeah. Right. Let's put this into perspective. Yeah. Why you turn it down work when you're sleeping on the floor? Yeah.
So I didn't expect anything. The next day I got a note. Ozzy himself calls me up and says, "Hey man, we've been trying out guys, and they're a bunch of hacks. And Randy tells me that you're the guy." And by then I was like, "Yeah, I'm there."
Yeah.
So he called me up, and within an hour, Randy picked me up because they were on they had to find a bass player because the first show was about 10 days later.
Oh wow.
They already had Tommy Aldridge. They just needed the bass player.
Yeah.
And so Randy picks me up, and we go to Ozzy's hotel, and I meet him. Tommy was there, and Sharon was there, and spent some time talking with Ozzy. And he says, "Man, please, just all you gotta do is be able to play." It's like, you already have the gig.
Yeah.
Just be able to play these songs. So the next day, again, remember this 1981, the record had just come out. It was not getting a whole lot of airplay. Nowadays there's like 5-year-olds that can play Crazy Train.
Sure, you're right.
Back then, I didn't know. And I didn't even hear the song on the radio yet.
Right.
So he plays. Okay, these are the two audition songs: Crazy Train and I Don't Know. So he shows me the bass line just to cut through the chase. Because I only had this is like 20 minutes before we had to leave to go to the audition.
Right.
So here I am retaining bass part, remembering the song that I never heard before. And I said, okay, we go. And then we get to rehearse to this audition. I played the song once with Tommy and Randy and me. Then comes Sharon and Ozzy. They say, "Okay, boys, let me hear it." It's Sharon.
Yeah.
And we play it. And then Ozzy gets up on stage, sings along with us for the second time around. And we finish, and he turns to me and says, "Hey, man, you won the gig?" I said, "Yeah." "Okay, we're done. We got the bass player." And then there was a room full of guys that were waiting to audition.
Oh, everybody, all the other bass players were in the room at the time?
Yeah.
Okay.
They were not happy.
Yeah. Did any of the other bass players that were in that room go on to do big acts?
I don't know.
Okay, so it's nobody you would run
I didn't
into
take
later.
any names.
It's no one you ran into later on a tour and be like, "Oh no, I was there for the Ozzy audition. I remember."
No,
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 okay.
I never heard back. I mean, it wasn't like today. We're probably exchanged like like with the iPhone,
Right. Yeah, I would have met everybody in the audition. Yeah, right.
Facebook.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Uh, and so
Yeah.
what year was that? That was actually let's go back. I don't know. Did we?
81. I
So
was 81.
how do you come down? How did
Okay.
you learn to come down from that?
Okay. Now remember, I'm on a really strong spiritual center,
Yeah.
right? Okay. So I would get off the stage with Ozzy, go in my bunk, and read the Bible.
Okay, that's not what
One
anybody
chapter.
thought that anyone in that band was doing after those gigs. That's
But it worked for me. And I was
killing. That's
like,
killing.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's how I kept it. Now, having said that, once I finished reading the Bible, I got to socialize. We're
Yeah.
all on the same bus,
Sure.
including Sharon and Rachel. And so I get out of my bunk, and it's like, Randy and I, we would go in the back lounge and listen to Lee Ritenour.
Oh, okay. Again, not what
Yeah.
I think Ozzy's band is doing.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
We
I would
listen
have
to
never
Lee.
guessed.
Yeah.
Members of Ozzy's band are then going on the bus to read the Bible and listen to Lee Ritenour. Like that's
right.
I would have lost money on that bet.
Because we already did the other stuff.
Right.
We already play metal.
Yeah.
We already did that. We got that aggression out.
Yeah, that's true. Okay.
What are we going to sit around? I mean, there's no Metallica, there's no Slayer to listen to.
Right.
It's just us and Black Sabbath. We're not going to put a Black Sabbath record
Right. Yeah.
in the Aussie bars.
Right.
Because there was a lot of friction going on at the time. I don't even think Deep Purple existed. I think it was WhiteSnake at that time. So what are we listening to?
Yeah, right.
We were in at Motorhead. Yeah, well, they're the opening band. I will have to put in a Motorhead cassette. Motorhead. I think those were like the two real metal bands in 1981.
Right.
There was a brand new Iron Maiden, but they were too young. You know what I mean? So what are we listening to? Well, we're going to listen to music.
Yeah. There's something completely different. And I do understand that because whatever gig I do, whatever style of music I play for the job that night, I listen to something completely different going home, on the drive home. So if I do a jazz gig or something, I don't listen to jazz afterwards. I'm jazzed out. My brain is burnt out on jazz for the night. So I'll listen to a singer-songwriter record or a bluegrass record. I listen to something completely different to change the feel of it all. So it makes sense. I just don't think of that when I think of metal musicians.
Yeah. But imagine 40 years ago when I would say most of the musicians you listen to, unless you're tuning into a legacy artist, like let's say Miles Davis, right? How many of those artists existed 40 years ago?
Right.
So we really didn't have that many choices.
Sure. Right. Yeah. All right. So to come down from the stage high, you were going back to the bus and you were listening to Lee Ritenour and reading the Bible.
And I would have one glass of Poulet Fusé, which was the wine of the day.
Okay. Just a glass of wine, Lee Ritenour.
Glass of wine.
Yeah. Read the Bible.
Eat some yogurt. Really, I'm not kidding you.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
And then if the trip was long enough and the bus driver had to gas up, we would go to a diner.
Okay.
Now, 40 years ago, diners were just truckers.
Right.
We would get looks.
Oh yeah, you walk in the metal fashion.
Well, no. I mean, we're wearing sweats.
Okay.
But just the long hair. Okay, you know that song "Turn the Page."
Mm-hmm.
Walking into the diner and you're getting all these looks.
Yeah.
It's part of the lyrics.
Yeah.
It was just like that. Yeah. Nowadays, it's an attraction. It's like going to Disneyland, going to.
I do. You said something earlier when it was when you're sleeping, when you're telling the story about sleeping on the floor, and if you never had success as a musician, but if you could play again.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
you've had an amazing, a very successful career, and with playing with all the top bands of the genre. How do you gauge success? Because you gave up the idea of success kind of before the career started, and you really got on this path of fulfilling what so many outsiders would say a successful career is. How do you gauge success?
Yeah, success is not a word that I use to define. I call it blessings.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, some blessings are different than others.
Yeah.
You know,
Some don't seem like it. Some don't seem like it at all.
Yeah, they're all blessings.
Yeah.
All to me, they're blessings until certain events occur, and it's time for a new blessing to move on.
I agree.
But I've had this one, and while it was happening, it was a blessing.
Yeah. Right. Okay. So it's just been a series of these blessings throughout your career that.
Yeah. The only band I ever left, well, I did leave Ozzy because after Randy died, I lost the joy of making music completely. I did not know how the significance of those who are left behind, the significance of the responsibility that we have as the ones who are left behind to actually celebrate the legacy of those of our bandmates.
Yeah.
That was 40 something almost 45 years. Next year is going to be 45 years ago. Well, actually 40, this year will be 43 because Randy died in 82. That I experienced that. And I was younger than older. I'm 74. So I'm like right in the middle. It's kind of like in the beginning of my life as I know it now. And I did not have the tools. So the only thing that I knew from my past experiences from leaving Cuba, running away from communism, or running away from disco in the 70s.
I love the correlation. I love the correlation between dictator and communism and Castro and disco.
Well, because it's not the music itself; it's the industry itself that dictates. That dictates.
Yeah, there are parallels there. I wasn't expecting it, and I think that's hilarious.
Like I mentioned, one of them is political, and the other one is corporate.
Yeah,
and it's that if you didn't play disco, in order for me to be able to be a working musician in Florida in the 70s, I had to be in a disco band, wear uniforms, and just be nondescript, no identity whatsoever, no musical freedom.
Right.
And it was like, no. I love, let me tell you, us bass players, disco was our best era. It was like, you play more notes than anybody else.
They don't get mad when you play all the notes in disco. Most other styles of music, they get mad that you play all the notes.
Yes, it was mandatory.
Right.
At that level, but I did not find it to be a rock band, cohesiveness, consciousness. Because, for example, before disco, I used to play with my brother, and he grew up with Jimmy Page as his rock hero. And he went from playing everything from all those Zeppelin records. All of a sudden now he's doing Waka Waka Waka.
Yeah.
With a wah wah.
Yeah, right.
And it was like,
yeah. Yeah, that's a different approach to guitar playing for sure. Yeah.
So I might be grinning and playing all this stuff, disco stuff, and I look over at my brother, he's pissed off.
Yeah, right.
It's miserable.
Yeah.
So it wasn't a joyful collective consciousness of band members. Some especially guitar players, they were pissed off.
Sure. Right.
Rock guitar players.
So I've been doing this new segment on the show. I just started this on the last episode, and I'm gonna rattle off 5 bass players' names.
Oh,
Okay,
wow.
and the first 2 words that come to mind when you think about this person, whether you know them or not, whatever. These are all rock players. I didn't know about if I would have known about your like big band understanding, like if big band was such a thing to you, I might have chose some like old jazz guys. These are all rock bass players. The first 2 things that come to mind when you think about this person, and maybe they're friends of yours, I'm not sure. There's been a couple bands you've already mentioned. The first bass player on the list is Nikki Sixx from Motley Crue.
Dear friend, I mean, I only got 2 words.
Well, we can do a story. What are the first 2 words that come to mind when you think about Nikki Sixx?
What's the dear friend? I mean, this is it's I have a lot of bass players who are friends of mine, and I think of them first as friends, as humans, rather than we happen to be bass brothers or sisters. Yeah.
Okay, dear friend. Next one, Cliff Burton from Metallica.
I never met him. Never met him. Now, and of course, it's going to take more than 2 words for me to describe my feelings about him.
Yeah.
I grew up, even before I joined Ozzy, I grew up with Black Sabbath. And I think that Cliff was somebody who really wore his influences, that you really knew where he was coming from influentially, And I think he was a follower of Geezer Butler, And even if he had never heard of Geezer Butler, he reminded me of Geezer, going in that direction, being forward thinking with the instrument.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. You mentioned this band already and this bass player, but Lemmy. that response right there might be enough. That's killing.
Yeah, because I tour with Lemmy. Right. I know Lemmy. Some people know Lemmy as the consciousness of Lemmy, what he stands for. My first impression meeting Lemmy when I started playing with Ozzy. My only reference when I started playing with Ozzy to metal was the Sunset Strip, which was more glam rock.
Yeah.
Not even metal. We're talking about Queen and Mott Hoople and Bowie and things like that. When you mention Nikki Sixx, we were all in local bands that we were influenced by that type of music. As a matter of fact, Nikki had a band called London right before Motley Crue, and he got the singer that replaced Ian Hunter in Mott Hoople to join his band. So he was part of the Sunset Strip.
Yeah.
So you had a lot of the guys who, in the mid-'70s, moved from their bands broke up. Let's say like Glenn Hughes from Deep Purple.
Yeah.
He moved to LA. So now Glenn Hughes from Deep Purple is part of the Sunset Strip because he hangs out at the Rainbow Bar and Grill every night.
Right.
And eventually Lemmy did the same thing. They all wind up at the Rainbow.
Yeah.
And so my first impression of Lemmy, I met him, and the crew and the band looked the same to me. They all wore the same clothes on stage, off stage. Not a whole lot of luggage. Lemmy's luggage was like a gym bag, like a stuff bag, filled with paperback books, a bottle of vodka with a little hint of orange juice.
Okay.
And that's it.
Yeah.
There was no underwear or socks in my bag.
Right, yeah.
Picking out because it was, the zipper was open and it was like, maxed out as far as stuff in there. So I could really tell what was in it.
Yeah.
And he was talking to me with that really heavy, I would say Cockney accent, very, it's probably like figure it will have the same effect on all the people when they hear me talk. With my Cuban accent. They have no idea what I'm talking about. But I could tell that he was very intelligent and articulate, but I just did not understand everything.
Right.
I started getting used to it being around Ozzy because Ozzy will get into that Birmingham, broomy
Yeah.
type of accent, and I have to like really pay attention, and I little by little start understanding it. Uh, but Lemmy, uh, see, Motorhead is a lifestyle. It's a way of living, and he played like he lived.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. There's something to that transparency, and where the art is actually just an extension of, for better or worse, I think ultimately that's a responsibility of the artist to be that open and that transparent and translate their understanding of the world, at whatever it might be, through art. I think that there's, I always appreciate artists that do that, and I think the best ones have. Next on the list, Steve Harris from Iron Maiden.
Another one that I toured with. See, these are forces of nature that I cannot even think of music, let's say bass players of that generation without them in it. They define, and also as him being one of the, if not the main songwriter in the band, he's the captain.
Yeah.
He's the vision of Iron Maiden. Our Maiden would have never existed without Steve Harris.
Right.
Whether it's his playing or his songwriting or just the whole approach, his passion, every single night. And again, this is somebody who is an example. What you see on stage, even though he was not as dangerous as Lemmy, off the stage, there's the alter ego, which is the captain of the band.
Right.
Iron Maiden. Yeah.
Last on the list is Duff McKagan, GNR, Guns N' Roses.
I was hoping you asked me about Billy Sheehan.
Then let's do it. I thought about it. I almost did when I was going through the list and I was putting this list together before the interview. I'm like, Billy Sheehan. That's funny that you bring that up because Billy almost made the list. Let's talk about Billy.
Well, Duff, yeah.
Duff, and we'll extend the list to 6. I want to hear your thoughts on Billy.
Yeah, Duff. What I really love about Duff is that he's actually a guitar player, and I really appreciate the melodic sense of guitar players that become bassists because they bring that with them to the instrument. Because after all, it's a bass guitar.
Right. Yeah.
So, yeah. As a matter of fact, I have a 6-string bass that I tune like a guitar.
Okay.
And I love playing it as a guitar.
Wow.
It's a bass guitar.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's interesting. I've never heard of that tuning of a 6-string, putting the B not on the lowest, but putting up to string 5, and then you have E, A, D, G, B, E, just like a guitar on a 6-string bass.
Yeah,
that's
105
cool.
to 28 gauge. Yeah, 32 and 28 for the high E.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a baritone guitar, actually, like a little bit thicker than a baritone guitar, but it's in that.
It's an actual bass because it's a 6-string Cirrus bass.
Okay.
PV
The PV, sure.
That I'll go 105 to 28.
Oh, wow. That's cool. Yeah. That's cool.
And when it does it gives me the extension of having 2 strings so I can use the cage system.
Yeah.
When I play. So I get all these, alternate ways of playing chords and going from one to the,
Sure. All the fingerings. The fretboard geometry then works like a guitar.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
All right, so Billy Sheehan.
Billy Sheehan, it's he and I we're about the same age. We claim Tim Bogart as our main influence for so many reasons, but we both took different paths sonically and playing wise. I think mostly it had to do with the fact that I was raised in a tourist environment. So and also culturally, the Latin community, they didn't want you to be playing at those quinceañeras a whole lot of Hendrix.
Right.
Santana was very acceptable
Sure.
because first of all,
Culturally. Yeah.
we started adding percussion. To me, that was kind of like, wow, this is great. Now we can rock out. We add percussion, people would dance, we get booked,
Yeah.
and we get to play. Because I always saw that period as being my, uh, getting my chops up, formative years as a musician. I never dove into songwriting then because I figure I'm not ready yet. I'm going to be spending my time, wasting my time and writing shitty songs. I'd rather work on my job
Sure.
and get some education as to play these songs and break them down. Why is this song a hit? Why is it on the
Yeah.
radio? Oh, because of these components that work together. What makes this bass line?
Yeah.
A something that the producer says, yes, go with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Billy went in a more aggressive, progressive direction, which this is what I call, the bands where the bass players, actually the music is written for each individual in the band. Let's say Rush.
Yeah.
Rush, all the compositions cater to the musicianship of each individual in the band, rather than to be a song-oriented band.
Right.
You are a band that writes songs oriented on the musicianship, and I love bands like that.
Mm-hmm.
So of course, as a matter of fact, I heard Billy in 1983. I was with Quiet Riot and somebody gave me a cassette, like a homemade cassette of him playing, and he's doing all this tapping and stuff. And I think, wow, if this guy ever gets the attention or the exposure that I have playing with Ozzy and now playing with Quiet Riot, he's gonna be the biggest thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I love it when I'm right.
Yeah. Now, just because you brought that up and you brought up Rush and Billy as being in these groups that are writing for the strength of the instrumentalist as well as writing the song, but it's with the instrumentalist in mind and writing for the band, I got to bring up John Mayung from Dream Theater. What are your thoughts? Because I mean that's another very progressive rock thing where they get to really, it's a band, and John gets to do his thing when he plays with Dream Theater.
Yes, but then again, it's not. How many top 40 hits have they had? No, I don't mean that.
No, I know. I mean, no, I have one. I don't know. No. If they have, I don't know. Yeah. Two, I can't imagine Dream Theater having any.
Yeah, because see, what happens is, let's say, this is all part of the business side.
Yeah.
Right? So you have a band where you start working with management and you start working with a record company and representatives that purely understand what the band is all about.
Yeah.
They're not going to change you. They're not going to come to you and say, well, guys, this is your third LP and we don't have a hit single. Can you write something? No, they see a bigger picture, which is you guys are developing an audience.
Right.
Which is pretty much what Rush did. Mm-hmm. They developed an audience, and I think the first, not necessarily a top 40 hit, but an FM hit was Tom Sawyer.
Yeah.
First,
I like Tom Sawyer.
Yeah, that was kind of like the one that the girls liked and the guys liked.
Yeah.
Because before that, it was more like a guys band.
Right.
I mean, how many girls do you go on a date with and she pops in King Crimson? No. Right. Even though my wife loves Bebop Deluxe.
Okay.
Oh yeah, we sit around, we listen to Yes, or Rush. She's a bigger Rush fan than I am.
Okay.
But that's very rare.
Yeah.
I mean that's usually male, testosterone type.
Right. Music. All that, a lot of that progressive music from that era is very much like that, right?
Yeah, exactly. And once you have a combination like you have with Dream Theater, that you have the business side. It's nurturing your musical.
Sure. Right.
Your
It
musicality.
influences the artistry.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It sustains it, and also it makes it possible for the band to continue developing.
Right. Man, I want to have you back on the show because I do want to talk to you about the nature of rock music today. So let's be in touch and let's try to schedule another one because I want to I got to split to go teach a lesson, but this would go like 4 hours, if I could. All the things I want to talk to you about and hear your thoughts on. But yeah, let's schedule another one, man. This has been great.
Okay.
What do you got coming up? Are you doing some touring with Quiet still?
Oh yeah. We go back out next week. We pick it up, the usual 60, 70 shows a year.
Oh wow. Is this for the first tour of 2025? Have you?
Well, we did a show a week ago.
Okay.
Our first show of 2025.
Okay. And is that the tour in the States or is it overseas?
We're going to Canada.
Okay. All right. Not so. Neither. It's not the States and it's not overseas. It's Canada.
I hope to let us in. I hope our Dylan pulled us up at the border.
Right.
And trying to use us as a negotiation for the tariffs.
Man, yeah, let's definitely be in touch, man. Have a good tour, and let's maybe touch base when you come back. Talk about the tour, and we'll talk about the nature of rock music today. I really want to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah. Let me know when this is up, and I'll spread her all over the place.
Yeah, cool, man. Cool. Yeah, I'll send you a copy of all of it. Thanks a lot, Rudy. I appreciate it, man.
I really enjoy myself.
Yeah, all right, dude. We'll be in touch for sure.
Yo, this is Craig Gash. Subscribe to the podcast. Follow us on the Instagram, the YouTube.
Okay.
Leave us a comment.
All right. That was my talk with Rudy Sarzo. Man, he just took it there. Like, boom, right out of the gate. We're talking about it. We're talking about his journey. We're talking about Cuba. We're talking about moving to Florida. We're talking about going up to Jersey, playing disco. He took the conversation to so many fun places. I would have never guessed by looking at the list of bands Rudy has played with that he grew up listening to big band music. One, would have never guessed that. Two, I would have never guessed that you get back to the tour bus and you read the Bible and you listen to Lee Ritenour, right? Did anybody see that coming? I don't think so. I don't think anybody could have guessed. Like, if asked, like, okay, what do you think the bass player from Quiet Riot does after a gig? Top 5 things, go. None of them would have been read the Bible and listen to Lee Ritenour. Nobody would have said that. I thought that was killing. I can't wait to have Rudy back on the show and to talk about the nature of rock music. I do want to talk to him about that, and I look forward to doing that. And we'll figure out some scheduling whenever that works out. But please stick around for that and hear kind of where the next part of this interview, because I feel like there's so much to talk to Rudy about, and I'm looking forward to not only the next episode but future episodes and having him back on regularly. It was an absolute honor to have Rudy on the show. As I mentioned, I'm asking the listeners to chime in so we can name this new segment, right? The new segment, I quiz. Quiz isn't really the right word. I asked them about 5 bass players that are within their genre, within their wheelhouse, to hear the initial thoughts of the guest. I don't have a name for this segment, so drop it in the comments below if you have an idea of what that segment should be called. Audio members, if you're listening to this on an audio device of some sort, email me at ryan@thebassshed.com, and I'm going to start announcing them, because this is what's going to happen. I'm not just going to pick one. No, I'm going to let you guys pick one. So I'm going to start reading off after I get a couple submissions, right? I'm going to take a poll. I'm gonna take a poll. That's what I'm gonna do. So you guys make the suggestions, and then you guys get to do all the you get to verify which one passes. That's all I got, folks. And I will catch you on the next one in a minute.